So just before we do our rendering, I'd like to get a perspective view, make it a little more realistic, and let's maybe put a person in behind that window just to kind of make it look a little bit better. So let's go back to our level 1. Okay, there's our opening with our sweep around it. Let's load up a family. Let's go home and let's go to component, and let's say place a component and say load family. And I'm going to go to the entourage folder, and I'll load in let's load in, we can use a control button and load more than one. Okay, so I'll grab the female and the male, bring them in, and I'll say okay, Cynthia, let's put Cynthia right there looking through the window. Escape, zoom back a little bit, and let's go to our camera view. So on our 3D button, we can either go view, and we can pick this guy and say camera. I have it on my quick access toolbar, camera. So say camera. The biggest mistake with cameras is to putting them too close. Give yourself lots of room when you create a perspective view. Do something like this. Okay, and she's not tall enough. We need to maybe change that to be the guy. So let's go to male, Alex. A little bit taller. He's standing through that window. And let's go SD on this view for shaded mode. I'm going to take this view, drag it down. Okay, kind of get myself a little bit of a vignette type appearance there. Okay, and now we're ready to render this. So we say okay, good. So we go down here to our teapot, and we pick our render button, and we say okay, render. And we want to do, let's do a draft first, and let's go scheme exterior sun only. Let's go sun and actually we don't have any artificial, so we'll just leave that way. Sky, few clouds, etc. Now I'm thinking I'm going to do one more item on here. I'm just going to cancel my rendering for a second. I'm going to go back here to the to this one, shadows off and on, and I'm going to pick on here, go into graphic display options, and inside of there I'm going to say give me a gradient background, which only shows up in shaded mode. Hit apply and hit OK. So I'm going to get a gradient background in there, like kind of a bit of a sky effect, and that's also going to help me, I believe, with my rendering. So let's go back to the teapot here, and inside of there let's do a draft, exterior sun only. Region, I only want to do a little piece, so it takes a second to do, and I'm just going to just clip this. Okay, all I want to do is a little bit, and then I'm going to say render. So it's going to do a very quick kind of rendering of that one little square. So that comes out like that. Not too bad. Okay, so let's go back and let's just say show the model again. And now let's get rid of the regional part, and let's do a render, and let's go back and let's go best quality, which will give me a higher resolution, and I'm not using region. It's going to render everything inside of this window box. So I say okay, perfect, and I will say render. So I'll do a render, and there's my render dialog box over here. It's going to go through and render that at 50%. It'll have gone over it once, and then once it gets to 100%, it'll actually go over that again. Now the other thing is my wall is not showing up as brick here, and I'm wondering if it's because I'm looking at the wrong side of the wall, okay, which I think is the case. So let's just kind of finish this and let it render anyway. So that turned out okay. What we need to do now is, what happened was, I'm just going to say show the model, and then I'm going to get rid of this. And what happened, of course, is if I go back to here, we've got Alex over here. We're looking this way, and I believe this side of the wall is the side with the brick. So if we go to our 3D view, we'll notice that the brick is on his side of the wall and not on our side of the wall. So let's just repaint this brick over here using our paint bucket. We go to modify and paint bucket. It's going to remember the last material we used. Pick that surface, hover in the right place, click, adds the brick in. Okay, escape, or click your modify button. Now under our 3D views, there's our perspective view we created. We double click on there, and now we're going to see our brick. Back to our render button over here. We'll say best quality, exterior sun. Sometimes I find I say artificial lighting, and it actually adds a little bit more to it, even though there's no artificial lighting. That's just a little quirk I always do. And I'm also going to say very cloudy, which will give us a little more cloud in the background. Okay, so now we hit render, and off we go rendering this again. So that adds a little bit more appeal to it once we get rid of that default material on that exterior wall. So you can see that's rendering through quite nicely, and it does its first pass at 50% because I'm using best quality, and then it goes over and repixelates it again to get my 100%. And that's coming along quite nicely. I think I'm going to do one more render, and what I want to do is change the material of this stonework. The only thing that really looks kind of not so good here is the actual green work. The brick looks good. Alex doesn't look too bad. A bit of a background here, and we'll just let this finish up to be 100%. And then what we can do, of course, once we've done this rendering, we can go in here and say save this particular rendered view to the project. So we say save, and we can call this 3D view 1, which is fine. Hit OK, and what's going to happen now is that's going to get filed down in here. We can revisit that anytime. So if I say show the model now, not a problem, okay, because I can always double click on this guy and go back and look at that view here, and I can place that on a sheet, and I can even import and export stuff. So now what we want to do is I want to edit the material of this sweep again. So let's go to a standard 3D view instead of a perspective view. I will hover over this in-place family, say edit the in-place family, and I'm going to pick back on here again and go back to this material and say, you know what, the arch trim material is good, but I don't like the look of the arch trim material. Let's just hit cancel on that. Okay, what I really want to do is change the material itself, not change the material of the arch, but actually change the material used as the arch material. Watch, go into manage, back to materials, okay, and go to arch trim, go to rendered appearance and say, you know what, I don't like this green material, I'm going to replace this, and let's pick something that's just going to show up a little bit more. Let's use this stone material here, hit OK. Okay, go back to graphics, it's going to change its color here. On that, hit OK, and it's going to do that. Now if I go back to my 3D view, and then I go to render, okay, I'm going to do render again, and I'm using the same properties down inside of here. Off I go, starts to render through that. Once again, the first pass usually goes fairly quick, and then the second pass will take a little bit longer. And there we go, 97% done. Wait till that gets to 100%, and we'll show you a couple more items that we can apply over here. So that looks a little bit better with the stone, a little bit more of an effect anyway. I'll let you play with those materials. The other thing we can do in here, first of all, is we can save to project, which saves it to there. We can say export inside of here, and we can export that as a JPEG right here and now, which is something you might want to do, okay? Or we can go in here and say adjust the exposure, and this is a neat one where you can start to change with the tints and stuff. So what you can do is you can add in more shadows and hit apply on there if you've applied shadows with it. You can also go in and say saturation. You can say, or this is a good one, white point warmer. If you grab this and move this up, you can hit apply, and you'll see it changes a little bit. So you can go in here and you can kind of tweak these guys and hit apply. Or if you get to something you don't want, it's all washed out, you don't know what you do, you just say reset to default and then hit apply, and it'll reset it back to the original render. So from inside of here, you might want to go in and hit apply on here and change these or do whatever you want. Once you have it done, you hit OK, and from there you can either save to project, save it here, it gives it a new name, or you can say export again, export it to a JPEG, and then show model just brings it right back to there. Exit out. So now under our renders, okay, inside of here we have double click on there, we have our original, and then we have this guy over here. So that's a little bit about creating an in-place sweep that goes around the elliptical opening object, and then some materials and a little bit of rendering.